first and foremost, right, you have to set standards and expectations in terms of what you're striving for, and make sure that you create a team culture and a culture around the whole program of excellence. I think players are only ever going to strive to be what you believe they can be.
Welcome here on Sandy Bay Media. My name is Rohit, and I am joined by Sian Hudson over at Louisiana State University. She's the head coach of the women's soccer program, and we're going to have a chat with her about the amazing career and journey she's been on as a coach. Firstly, she started off as an international player for Wales, retired at the age of 19 due to multiple knee injuries, moved into coaching around the early 2000s, spent 13 years at Pride Soccer Club in Colorado Springs. In 2015, she was the assistant coach at Colorado College in the NCAA 1. 2017, she was the head coach of NCAA two-side University of Colorado Springs, where she had a record of 33 wins, 8 draws, and 4 losses across a 2-year span. In her first season, she took the college to a Final Four finish with a 4th place national ranking. And 2019, she moved on to Louisiana State University as the head coach of the women's program. How did I do that?
Sounds great.
Perfect. Well, look, it's fantastic to have you on, Shai.
Thanks for having me on. Excited to be on and chat with you, Rohit, today.
Excellent. Well, obviously, as I mentioned earlier, you retired from from football due to multiple knee injuries. As a 19-year-old, what was that like for yourself, and what did you go through?
Yeah, I think it's anytime you experience a serious injury, I think it can be challenging, certainly psychologically. But at that period in time, I had just broken into the full national team setup as the youngest player to ever play for the full national team. And, you think you're on top of the world at that point. And then, injury hits, and I tore one ACL, rehab to get back, and then 4 games into my recovery, tore the other one. 20 years ago, that was a pretty serious injury. So I think I had 6 or 7 knee surgeries, and then just decided that I was never going to be the same player. And I like to do things to the best of my ability, and I wasn't really interested at that point, I guess, in sort of being an average player, and decided to focus more on the coaching side. And just loved, I had got into coaching during my rehab from the first ACL, and just really had a passion for working with younger players and sort of sharing my love for the game. And when the second injury hit so soon after the first one, it just became evident at that point that that's where my passion was at, and switched gears and moved across the world to America to pursue my dream of coaching.
No, that's fantastic to hear that you didn't let those injuries stop you or sort of prevent you. You just kept pursuing the game that you loved.
Yeah, there was obviously a period probably of some depression and some loss of identity in terms of, I'd been chasing my dreams of playing for my country and playing professionally my whole life. And then, that's taken away from you in sort of a split second. And, obviously there's a period there of soul searching and asking yourself pretty deep questions about what you want out of life. And, I was really fortunate to have a coaching mentor at the time that sort of took me under his wing and got me into coaching with him. And I'll always be really thankful for that, because I don't know what life would have looked like without soccer. And so just to have the opportunity to switch gears into coaching and still be in the game, I was really thankful.
No, that's great to hear. It just sounds like it was a bit of a fresh air and sort of gave you a bit of an option, sort of, as you mentioned, didn't know what was going to happen if football wasn't there.
No, I think not only do I love the game, but I love just being around people, and in a team atmosphere. And so, you can obviously still get that, on the coaching side. I don't think it's ever going to be quite as special as playing the game, but, still being in a team atmosphere and working with people to common goal is certainly something that I love to this day.
No, that's something I completely agree with and can relate to. Well, let's have a look at your move to the US. You mentioned, post injury wise, you went through that period, and then an opportunity came about to come to the US. What was that like for you and those early years?
Yeah, during university back in the UK, each summer I would come over and work for a camp company in America called Challenge Sports. So I spent between 6 to 12 weeks every summer in the United States, sort of working camps and traveling around the country. So during that period of time, I just, learned to love the US culture and certainly the support that they have or they had at the time in comparison to the UK for women's football or women's soccer. And so after I graduated, I literally think it was the day after I graduated from university, I got on a plane to America and really haven't looked back. I think there's always going to be a period of transition and adjustment when you move anywhere, let alone across the other side of the world and, experience a new culture. But I was fortunate to have people around me at that point in time that sort of took me under their wing and a family that took me into their home. And, to this day, really good friends with so many people that sort of helped me in my transition. And now hopefully I've been able to do that with so many players I've coached. So it was a great experience for me and still is 20 years later living here. But it can be challenging initially in those first few months.
No, it definitely can. Well, and it looks like you definitely settled in. And as you mentioned, you just got on the first flight after you graduated and just headed over. That's brilliant to hear. Well, let's having a look at, as I mentioned earlier, 2003, and you spent 16 years at Pride Soccer Club. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, when I first got to the United States, I had the opportunity to get into the college game or the youth game. And at 21 years old, I felt like, maybe I needed some time at the youth level, working with the younger kids, sort of building a foundation, a technical foundation, and just getting the opportunity, I think, to impact. I was working for a club by the name of Pride Soccer Club that had 5,000 kids. And so I had the chance as a director of coaching to work with 40, 45 teams, coaches, a lot of younger coaches, or our experienced coaches actually, but just loved the opportunity to sort of impact hundreds, if not thousands of players in terms of, I think building first and foremost a love for the game and then, providing a foundation, both technically and tactically, that hopefully, they would go ahead and build on over their careers. And, so many players that I worked with at Pride went on to play in college, some at the national team level. And so when I look back and reflect on that period of my life, I certainly do so with so many fond memories and so many great relationships that I built. And even to this day, still keep in contact with a lot of the players and families that I worked with. So loved my time at the youth level with Pride and in Colorado Springs. It was a great place to spend so much of my life.
That's brilliant to hear once again. And just looking at, obviously, you spent a lot of time there, and towards that tail end of your time at Pride, you moved into the coaching role with the WLeague side.
Yeah, we had an opportunity to start up a WLeague team, and I had talked a lot about sort of our club pyramid when I first got there. Even though I was overseeing the U11 through U14 age groups, I felt like we needed to start an academy. So I built an academy curriculum for 7, 8, 9, and 10-year-olds to just lay this technical foundation that we had talked about. And then over the course of my, career at Pride, I worked with 7-year-olds all the way through. My most recent role before I moved on to the college ranks was the college placement coordinator with the 15s through 18s and the high school age girls. But when those players would go away to play in college, they would come back in the summers and they didn't have a team to play on.
Yeah.
And so we started this WLeague franchise, and had unbelievable success in 2014 and 15. We were able to bring players in from all over the world. Three Australian girls, actually. Chloe Lagazo is probably the
Yes.
uh, the most well known of the three. Tara Andrews and Ashley Sartor, three unbelievable human beings and phenomenal players in their own right. So we had international players, we had some of the best college players, and then we obviously had players that had come through both our academy system and the youth system at Pride. And the community sort of took all these players in. We had host families, 45 host families, thousands of people at the games. And so it was just a great experience to sort of put international level soccer in Colorado Springs and to show, the youth players, what they were striving for and what the absolute top of the pyramid in terms of women's football and women's soccer looked like. So that was a great experience. In 2015, we lost in the national championship final in Canada to Washington Spirit Reserves. But yeah, just an unbelievable experience. Made so many great relationships and had the chance to work with wonderful people and fantastic players. So
That's great to hear that, and it's amazing to hear that sort of, as you mentioned, just building that community and community spirit, but also having an impact in the region, especially through women's football.
yeah, I think the most important thing that we can do as experienced people in this game is give back to the youth and help guide kids and young women, sort of through their journey and show them what's possible. And I think that experience alone and certainly bringing in different cultures from overseas just gave such a unique sort of spin on a WLeague team that had never really existed in Colorado Springs before. So the community completely embraced it, and I think everybody involved would reflect on those couple of summers and say, it's just an unbelievable experience.
That's awesome to hear. And just looking at, so I believe at one point or another, you shifted towards, going back to college football after, as you mentioned, when you first arrived in America, you wanted to get involved in the youth system, but now you felt like you had that experience and knowledge that you could move into the college system.
Yeah, I think after the 2015 WLeague team, I think we had 5 players on that team that went on and played in the World Cup in France. And I think after that experience, just working with higher level players and being a little bit more focused on the tactical side of the game
Mm-hmm.
just gave me a desire, I think, at that point to make the transition from youth coaching into college coaching.
Yep.
And I was fortunate. I had a good friend, Jeff Bennett, that was working at Colorado College, and he had an opening, and was fortunate to be able to move into the college ranks without having to move my family. So really, really enjoyed my time both at Colorado College as an assistant. It was a great learning experience. The NCAA has a lot of rules, and
Oh,
so
yes.
just learning how to navigate, sort of the NCAA pathway, and just learning more about the college environment was great for a couple of years at CC, and then had the opportunity to lead the program at UCCS. My husband was a soccer player there on the men's side. That's where he graduated from. And so to be able to stay in that community that I had spent so much time in, and lead the UCCS program, honestly, to national prominence. When I took them over, they were struggling at the Division II level, and we were able to go to the Final Four in our first year and had a lot of success over a 3-year period there. But it was just great to sort of take a program in Colorado Springs in a community that I cared so much about to sort of, national prominence. And, even to this day, those girls are doing fantastic things. I still follow along with them. So it's great to see that program continuing to sustain the success that we built there.
No, that's great to hear. And obviously, as you mentioned, as you mentioned that you took them to a Final Four and then sort of transformed that program. As a coach, what was that like for yourself, and what did you do that was different?
Well, I think first and foremost, right, you have to set standards and expectations in terms of what you're striving for, and make sure that you create a team culture and a culture around the whole program of excellence.
Mm-hmm.
I think players are only ever going to strive to be what you believe they can be. And so when we got in that season, myself and my assistant coach at the time, Laura Kane, we just spoke about, we've recruited a roster that's capable of competing nationally, and just, had to speak to the players about, you need to believe in yourself. We can accomplish this together. We obviously changed the playing model and instilled our sort of tactical game model. But I think most importantly, I think anytime you take over a new program, you have to set standards, expectations, and sort of build a culture and an atmosphere that you think the players can thrive in. And for me, that's one of sort of connection and family. We want our players to feel a part of something bigger than themselves, and know that, like I talked about, the transition moving away from home and to the other side of the world. I think wherever you're coming from as a player, you're typically having to move to do it and get out of your comfort zone. And so I think anytime you can provide sort of a safety net and an environment that your players are comfortable in, you're going to see them thrive on the field as a result of that. So, no, just a great experience, honestly, at UCCS, and a great learning curve for me.
That definitely sounded like it was you sort of got everything right that in those 2 years that you spent. And, just looking at your record of 38, 8 and 4, that's very impressive. And it just sounds like, those standards, those expectations, the players bought in, your staff bought in, and you just sort of hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
And then after that, obviously and then 2019, you ended up moving into your LSU. What sort of spawned that move? And
yeah, like I said, we had a lot of success with the program. And it was about a month before the end of the season in 2019, and I got a phone call from LSU, and I think they were really interested in bringing in a female coach, somebody that had proven themselves to be successful in their career so far. So I had a few conversations with them. I didn't want to pursue anything while I was still competing at UCCS and in the NCAAs. But after that season finished, I got the opportunity to come down to LSU, and at the Division II level, at times you can be a little bit limited in terms of the resources that you have, both in terms of your staff and your financial resources. LSU is one of the premier institutions in America in terms of the conference that we play in, the facilities and the resources that we have. We play in a conference called the SEC, the Southeastern Conference. It's considered to be one of the top 5 conferences in the country. I think at the moment we're probably one of the top 2 conferences in the country. And so just, an unbelievable honor and privilege to be able to be here at LSU and sort of overseeing sort of the resurgence of this program. We got into the national tournament last year, which was a great sort of stepping stone for us in our first true year as a coaching staff. The first year we were here, we were dealing with COVID and lockdowns, and we didn't really have a true season. So this past year was a huge amount of success in year 1 for us, and we're looking to build on that as we move forward.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, and speaking of last year, as you mentioned, it was a great deal of success for you and your staff. And I'm assuming, so obviously you'd be looking to continue that this year.
Absolutely. Yeah, we've signed some fantastic players. We actually just had one player get drafted into the NWSL. She'll be playing for the Washington Spirit. Tanea Alexander, she went 14 in the draft. So we also have another player that's gone over to play in the Champions League in Lithuania. So we're thrilled to sort of see players coming out of our program having the opportunity to go on and play professionally. And then, bringing in new players that we believe can not only come in and help sustain the momentum that we have at the moment, but maybe even elevate us into a team that can go, deeper into the national tournament.
No, we can definitely see that coming, especially looking at your history and everything you've achieved. We can definitely see LSU pushing for those national titles very shortly.
Yeah, we were ranked this past year. We were ranked as high as number 5 in the country at one point. So, we definitely have the capability of competing with the top programs in the country. And like I said, we have the resources, and LSU is unbelievable in so many different sports. We have national championship teams in football and track and field. Our gymnastics team is unbelievable. So many sports that are competing on the national stage. And, we certainly want soccer to be one of those, prestigious sports here. We have an unbelievable fan base here at LSU. Thousands and thousands flock to see their teams play. And I think our largest crowd this past year was around 3,500. So we're just seeing a huge growth of the sport here in Louisiana, and I think around the world in general, actually. So for me, that's what it's all about. Can we grow the game? Can we help put women's soccer on at a different level in terms of just the following around the world? And can we make sure that the players that we have here have the best experience possible?
Oh, I can definitely see that, and obviously, the school's made the right decision to go with yourself in this role to push it to that next level.
I appreciate that.
Well, thank you for joining us and having a chat about your career so far. And what a ride you've been on so far. And I just can't wait to see where it goes from here.
Thanks, Rohit. I really enjoyed coming on, and anything that I can do for the listeners over there in Australia. I've loved the Australian players that I've got to coach in the past, and I would just encourage any young girls over in Australia that want to sort of playing elite level soccer and getting an education to explore the college pathway, because I think it's a very unique opportunity that America provides.
Definitely. Well, look, once again, thank you for joining us, and all the best for the rest of the year.
Thank you.